I'd move we suspend the court.
Without objection.
All right. Madam President, when I stay to talk about a piece of legislation I intend to introduce, the Advise and Consent Restoration Act. Congressman Senator Cruz from Texas and I will be introducing this bill that really responds to last week's decision announced on Friday by a three-judge panel on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, where they unanimously ruled that President Obama violated the Constitution when he made so-called recess appointments to the National Labor Relations Board. And they're so-called recess appointments because the Senate said we were still in session. The fundamental question here is, does the President get to decide whether the Senate's in session or not, or does the Senate get to decide whether the Senate's in session or not? If that question would have been debated when the Constitution was being debated, I'm sure that they would say, well, that will never come up. There's no way we're going to develop a system with this separation of powers, and the President will decide whether the Senate is in session or not. But this President did decide that, and the court agreed with the argument that a number of senators, Senator McConnell and I, along with 40 of our colleagues, filed an amicus brief that clearly made the point that the Senate gets to decide when the Senate is in session. We argued that the Constitution does not empower the President to make this decision. The court agreed with that ruling, stating that any other interpretation of the Constitution would give the President free rein to appoint his desired nominees in any time he pleases. This is a quote from the court. The court said, quote, the President would have free rein to appoint his desired nominees at any time he pleases, whether that time be a weekend, lunch, or even when the Senate is in session and he is merely displeased with its inaction. That ends the quote out of the three-judge panel's decision. The right of the Senate to provide advice and consent is an important check on the risk of this type of presidential overreach, and one that the Senate should actively exercise. And in fact, the Senate actively and consciously made the decision in January to stay in session to do some of the work that needed to be done during the session, and frankly, to be sure that the President couldn't avoid the constitutional requirement of advice and consent. Allowing the President to determine the Senate schedule would seriously damage the balance of powers. It would seriously damage the Senate's autonomy. It eliminates an important check on the executive branch. The court invalidated the one ruling that was being appealed. Mr. President, you, of course, understand this exactly, that the court case would only have appealed one ruling that impacted one company or one employer, and the court said that ruling can't stand. But there are more than 200 other actions that this same group that the court said is not legally functioning had taken, and all 200 or more of those actions are now in question. I believe the answer will be clear. Perhaps all those will have to be appealed in some way so that a court can say, nope, just like the first ruling we made, the people that made these decisions were not constitutionally in place. Consequently, the ruling they made isn't in place. I believe the answer here will be clear. The work of this agency will not pass constitutional muster, and of course, the President needs to now appoint people that would be confirmed by the Senate. In spite of the three-judge panel's unanimous decision, the National Labor Relations Board recently announced that it intends to ignore the ruling and carry on with business as usual. Well, this is not a very acceptable response. The President first decides he's going to decide whether the Senate's in session or not, and then the people he appoints in an unconstitutional way decide they're going to ignore the court ruling and continue to do what they've been doing. Well, the president needs to reappoint, and until the president does reappoint, Congress has a responsibility to block this unconstitutional act by terminating the salaries of those who were illegally appointed and by preventing them from conducting any official business until the Senate acts to approve their appointments. Senator Cruz and I urge our colleagues to join us in supporting this effort. The National Labor Relations Board should take down the open for business sign that they put up on Monday after the court ruling on Friday, and frankly, they need to put up a help wanted sign. The Constitution matters. What the Constitution says matters, and the Senate should, and I hope will, be vigorous in enforcing our constitutional responsibility. And with that, Mr. President, I notice the lack of a quorum.
Clerk will call the